Yeah, because it's so easy, especially with your first property, like, oh, it's so beautiful. Everybody's gonna love it. And right. And you're just rose-colored glasses all the way, and you're not
Yeah.
seeing, right, those hiccups in the road. You're just looking at the end, and you're not seeing that there's a big, potential minefield between here and there. Hey, welcome back to Women Creating Wealth. We have a wonderful woman creating wealth with us today. Nichols is the co-founder of Getaway. And prior to that, she spent 4 years as an executive at Bungalow, which is a technology-enabled residential real estate company. And during her time there, she ran numerous business functions, including operations, growth, marketing, sales, and real estate. She spearheaded raising and operating a $700 million real estate fund focused on acquiring single-family rentals. And before that, she was a strategy and planning senior manager at Uber and a consultant at IBM. She's a very, very successful person who we're excited to talk to today. She also holds a Bachelor of Science from Carnegie Mellon University. Allie, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, Allie, before we started the recording, you were talking about that Getaway has done a really big pivot, and there's all kinds of exciting things happen. So do you want to talk about that first, or would you rather just tell us sort of how you got into this in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I think, they go hand in hand in a lot of ways. So, as you mentioned, I've spent the last, before Getaway, I've spent the last good chunk of time working at another real estate startup and was really focused on how we could create value by acquiring single family rentals and bringing them to the market. And with that, our biggest partner were institutions. And what I saw from that experience was like, wow, one, there's a huge opportunity in the real estate space in general, and there still is for all the way around. And then two, the idea that as individuals, we have the opportunity to own real estate seems to be a fleeting thought. It seems to be further and further away, especially as we see, millennials enter that age of ownership, and then we're going to see the next generation after that, and so forth. And so, really decided, I want to dedicate all of my time and energy in figuring out how I can help more people like myself, like my friends, really get into the space and start building, wealth through real estate, because I feel very passionate about it as an asset class.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when we started Getaway. And you mentioned that we are going through a pivot right now in terms of our product offering, but our mission and our goal still remains the same, as helping more and more individuals access the space. And so for us, the way that we're approaching that now is really trying to reduce the barrier of entering into the investment property world. And so in today's space, if you were to go out and buy an investment property, you need 20 to 30% down to enter. And there's no programs to help anyone like there exists when you're buying your primary property. But we're seeing that, cities are more and more expensive to live in. So a lot of the folks that live in New York City are actually looking to start buying investment property first.
Right.
And so we saw this need and really thought, okay, how can we help our customers get over that initial barrier of actually acquiring that real estate and start building equity in properties today. And so our product, we partner alongside our customers and actually invest in the equity portion of the deal. So we'll essentially come in and bring part of the down payment to the deal with you. And our goal is that the properties that you're buying cash flow enough to pay, back the mortgage, back us, our operating expenses, and then there's still some left over for the investor. And then also that over the years that we're invested alongside of you, the property builds enough equity that you're able to actually buy us out of the property through a refinancing event. And then in 5 years, it's like, this is your property. You entered in with a fraction of what it normally requires to get into it. And now you own 100% of the property and 100% of its cash flows.
Yeah, that
So we're
seems like
really excited.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as you said, it's hard for people to save up 20%, 30% to get it. And they're not, to be honest, a lot of banks aren't too excited to loan to a first-time investor. They're
No.
like, oh, you have no experience. I don't think so, right? It's just like anything. They're
Exactly.
happy to lend you money you don't need and give you, right?
Yeah.
Always the case.
Exactly. So for us, it was like, wow, this is a really underserved part of the market. It doesn't fit into, a nice bucket from a bank's perspective. And so we're really excited to really help people enter into the investment space, whether it's your first property or you're growing a portfolio. We're here to partner with you.
Excellent. And how does the ownership piece work at that point? Do you just own whatever the percentage is of what you've put in? So say it's $100,000 property and they bring 5,000 to the table and you bring what, 15 or
Mhm.
25 or whatever. How does that ownership actually work?
Yeah, so we structure, our relationship with the customer as a set preferred rate. And so what I mean by that is like it essentially, in a lot of ways, is like an interest only loan on the amount that we bring to the table. And why that's beneficial is actually we don't take any of the upside. Property performs beyond our expectations. That goes all into the owner's pocket. And then on the downside protection, like our whole goal and where we're building all of the tech and systems around is that we're underwriting properties with super high fidelity. Like that is our goal, that we can actually help you guide you to a property that's we feel 99% confident that we'll be able to hit the cash flows that we expect to ensure that the property makes sense for us, but also for the customer.
And so for a first time investor, it sounds like this would be something to be really ideal because it sounds like there'd have to be that you're somewhat training them along the way. You're guiding them and training them, which is exactly what every first time investor needs.
Yeah, yeah. And with that, we also stay alongside the investor as an asset manager. So we help with performance reporting. We'll help do all of the tax preparations and like work with our accounting firms to make sure that everything is set up correctly, that nothing slips through the cracks, that we're seeing the property perform as it should, and so forth. So just like you said, like there is a bit of oversight that can be really helpful for folks that are starting their journey.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And who do you have? Do you have like an ideal person that you like to work with, an ideal sort of avatar that someone who you've seen by experience really works well in this program?
Yeah, it's really been interesting. So we are still very early on. And what we found as our kind of super user group are folks that are coming to us. They actually have anywhere from like 1 to 10 doors, and they're actively looking to grow their portfolio. Their goal is very much a buy and hold strategy where they see themselves owning this property for 10 plus years. They really think that the end state is a portfolio of properties that generates enough passive income that it can replace full-time work, or be like a retirement plan, or could be passed down to future generations. So I would really say folks actively looking to grow their real estate and view this as very much a long-term play is really our sweet spot right now. I do think as we grow, we really want to help more people who are taking their first leap into this space. But right now, that's who's gravitating towards us.
Okay, interesting. And you think maybe that could even be that's who's in the right circles to have heard about you at this point, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's totally right. And they're like actively looking for opportunities because we are not completely all over the map right now in terms of like a marketing and brand perspective.
Well, and the map, you bring up a good point. Do you have a geographic area where you're focusing, where you feel you have the expertise?
So to date, we've really focused on the Sun Belt. So I consider that being, North Carolina down to Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, also Tennessee, and then New York and Pennsylvania have been like areas where we've seen a lot of demand. And so have been focusing our efforts there. But that being said, we can work with folks all over the country, especially if there's a great opportunity and we're looking to always expand.
So I don't think you've directly said this, but with a name like Getaway, are you looking for like vacation rental type of situations, maybe short-term rental scenario?
So we service both. So we'll service anything in the residential space. That includes the short-term rentals. That includes single family and multifamily. A lot of the things that we're thinking in terms of the name are like Getaway Financial. Like, how do you get to that next step in your investment, career and in your life in terms of where you want it to go. So that's a little play on the name there.
No, I like it because it's like, this is your client's opportunity to get away from the rat race
Mm-hmm.
and the 9 to 5 at the same
Yeah.
time that they're potentially providing a getaway for their
Yeah,
clients, right? Yeah, I like
exactly.
it. So when you are thinking about the company's future, do you have some sort of goals or ideas or, like this is where, we want to have, and actually I also want to ask you about your analytics. So let's not lose track of that while my brain is focused on, 10 things at the same time.
Okay, got it. Okay, so in terms of big vision and goal, like we really, really want to become the destination for real estate entrepreneurs. I mentioned this earlier, but this is a very underserved part of the market when it comes to financial products. Um, and I think there's a ton of opportunity to, one, bring more transparency to this area of the market and let people know what their options are, build more products for folks to continue to grow and invest, and just more access all around. And beyond just financial products as well, our goal is to really expand into the entire investor journey, everything from searching for properties and finding properties that like fit your criteria to actual transacting and doing the brokerage on the deals to then the financing aspects as well, and then ongoing management. So there's a huge life cycle here, and our goal is really to build an end-to-end product for folks that are trying to build their real estate empires.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now, back to the analytic piece, because I didn't forget, luckily. So when you're looking at it, a potential opportunity, so does it work that the person who you're working with, they'd come and say, oh, this is the property. They usually start off with, hey, here's a place I want to buy. Is that kind of the way you're normally, or are you doing that piece together as well right now?
Yeah, so it works two ways. First, the way you mentioned is we have customers who have already done all the hard work. They've identified a couple properties that are interesting to them, that their buy box and criteria, and they'll come to us and be like, hey, like, would this work for your product? Could we partner together? That's one avenue, and we highly encourage that. But the other avenue that is really exciting, and a lot of what our team is building, and what I think actually really sets us apart in the market, is our ability to go out and underwrite all of the properties available in the market and basically stack rank them based on where we find, where they stack rank in terms of investment, for both a short-term rental and a long-term rental property. And then we're able to use that to guide conversations with our customers. So, if we were working together and we would set up basically your buy box or your investment criteria. Which markets are you interested in? What is your budget to actually deploy into an investment right now? Are there any, do you hate short-term rentals? Do you love the idea of short-term rentals? Is that something on the table? Do you have any other criteria that you really want to achieve in what you're buying? And then we can actually take that, plug it into our system, and automatically constantly be pulling the top opportunities that come up for you. And that helps us really guide the conversation of like, hey, here's 10 things that really fit your buy box. And they work for our product because we've already pre-underwritten them. So is anything interesting here? So it really takes like a lot of the guessing work and a lot of that upfront work out of the equation. And there's a place we can add value.
And what kind of analytics are you doing on the individual properties to make that decision?
Yeah, so a lot of it comes down to revenue. really feeling confident that we understand the amount of rent that that property could produce, whether that's a long-term rental or a short-term rental. That's first and foremost. And we have an amazing team that is pulling from multiple sources, available. And then we're also building our own revenue models so that that becomes more and more accurate over time. And then the next piece is really operational, like operating expenses. So getting very, very clear down to a municipality level of how much your tax is going to cost, how much should we expect for utilities, what is insurance like in that area, are there any special unique situations, which then allows us to really get to a good understanding of how the property will perform.
Excellent. So what sort of support would a person expect if they were going to be doing this with you? Is it sort of one-on-one? Is it more of a group kind of scenario? How would that all work?
Yeah, so it's very personalized to each customer's needs. So like I mentioned earlier, if you were to come on today, we would set up time to really walk through what are your investment goals, what are your criteria, and then from there, a team member would support you along the way. So we'd be sending you opportunities. Once you are like, oh, that's awesome, let's move forward. Our team can help you through the transaction process, putting in an offer. We have preferred lenders that we can help, guide our customers to and help them through that process to understand, what types of leverage we'll be able to get for a property at what rate, how does that impact our underwriting of the property, and so forth. And then, assuming we have a winner, we close on a deal, we're there along the way. So as long as we're invested alongside of you, we stay on as the asset manager. And in that role, we help put in place a property manager. We do the monthly reporting and performance reporting, both for the owner and for our investors on our side, and then ensure that the property is like correctly, all of the taxes are done correctly and all of the kind of back office function that truly not very fun is handled to institutional level kind of reporting standards.
Excellent. And so let's say it's 5 years later.
Yeah.
And, we have a worst possible scenario type of thing.
Yeah.
One is that there isn't enough equity in the property to pay you back. So, because let me understand this too, like make sure, is it going to be the investor and you and like a bank or third party, or are you doing basically all of it? If I brought 5% to the table, are you bringing the other 95? Or are you bringing another amount to make it bankable, or
Yeah. So in a normal deal, we are still going out and getting a mortgage, let's say for 80% of the property's price.
Yeah.
And then we're coming along and bringing 15% of the capital to the table, and you're bringing 5.
Yeah.
And so in the 5-year scenario, where let's say the down market, like we hit a bad year, 5 years turns out to be a bad year to try.
Bad year to refinance.
Yeah. So we have built into all of our agreements the ability to extend the term so that we're not, there's more flexibility than it's like stringent, 5 years or you're done. So there's that downside protection built in as well. And really in a downside scenario, I think as we've kind of modeled this out and played this out, the most likely outcome would be that we'd make the decision to sell the house and pay back that mortgage first, and then obviously split the remainder based on the amount we're both invested.
So there is a property manager in place, right? So there isn't an opportunity for the owner to just sort of like do a really terrible job and not actually make any money on the property, right? It's sort of, you take that away, take away that temptation.
We do require professional management. Now, if the property owner has an established operating history because they're already operating 5 properties on their own, and is is clearly capable, and I shouldn't say capable, that's the wrong word, but has clear operating history and experience, we will partner with folks like that. But if this is your first investment, we highly recommend bringing in a professional manager who can oversee the property, knows how to do trust accounting. There's just a lot of pieces that go into it when there's multiple parties invested into a single property.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you had any scenarios where, you felt like, okay, well, we have to make sure we never do this again?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is because we are early in our journey as a company, we are being very critical on our underwriting standards. Like, we're trying to avoid early mistakes when it comes to picking properties and picking partners and things like that.
Yeah.
So the biggest, I think we're taking a lot of focus on, like, okay, do we really believe in this property? Let's haircut and let's play the downside scenario over and over again to make sure that we're not setting ourselves and also our customers, first and foremost, up for a situation that's less than ideal. So that's just a big focus of ours right now.
Yeah. And that's the way to avoid problems down the road, right? Just keep
Yeah.
on hammering it and say, what else could go wrong? What else could go wrong? And
Yeah,
then,
exactly.
yeah, because it's so easy, especially with your first property, like, oh, it's so beautiful. Everybody's gonna love it. And right. And you're just rose-colored glasses all the way. And you're not seeing, right, those hiccups in the road. You're just looking at the end and you're not seeing that there's a big, potential minefield between here and there.
Totally. And I think for us too, it's interesting because the data over the last couple of years is so skewed. Because we've seen, like, even on the home price appreciation side, it's like the last couple of years have been insane in terms of home values going up. So we're not anticipating that going forward, but if we just took an average, like a 10-year average, they're skewed too high. So it's things like that where we're using a lot of, like, critical thinking on, we can't just rely on, like, historicals, because historicals right now don't make sense. They're not really at the mean.
It's a lot of unrealistic
things like
things unusual things that have happened.
Unusual.
In the last few years.
Just unusual.
Yeah. And so how about, you talked about making sure you're partnering with people. What is the criteria that you use before you say, yes, okay, we're ready to jump on this investment with you? For the person, not just, obviously we've got the property covered now. How about the actual person?
Yeah. So we're super fortunate because we're taking out that mortgage piece, we can kind of follow the footsteps of the lender in terms of the borrower. So in a lot of ways, like, if it meets our lender's requirements, which tend to be stricter than us, like, we're great. So that is one nice piece. But typically we're really focused on, credit score is a good indicator. We want to make sure that all of our investors have reserves in case things do go wrong in the first couple months, or, there's a water leak that we didn't know about, or things just happen in real estate.
Right. Exactly.
So we're big on ensuring that there's reserves in the tank to cover those types of things. And then credit, we do also look at income, but it's not as big of a factor like it would be in the conventional space. But it is just another input.
Well, I mean, and hopefully it's the majority of the income is coming from the property itself, right? But you don't want somebody who's right, who can't pay their own bills, because that's the recipe for a disaster.
Yeah, like, we don't, our goal is to help people get into the space and really start building equity, but we also don't want to get anyone in over their skis. Like, we're not trying to, build a product that allows people to enter into a world that, they're going to be stuck holding something that they can afford to maintain at the end of the day. That's, like, the furthest thing away from what we're hoping to build.
And there are still a lot of opportunities out there for properties where you're not, I mean, everybody thinks, oh, everything's overpriced. You can't possibly buy a place and make money, but that isn't the case, right? That's definitely not the case. But are you seeing there are certain markets where it's easier to do that than others?
For sure. As real estate investors, it's funny, like obviously interest rates have a huge impact on your business, but at the end of the day, it's a cash flow business. If the cash flows make sense, the interest rate like shouldn't necessarily matter. And it only, if you have opportunities to refinance later, it only makes it juicier. But in terms of markets that there's more opportunity, we're definitely seeing, and this is always the case though, but like more tier 2 and tier 3 cities, just in terms of size. We're based in Miami, Florida. Miami is a tough market. Like I wouldn't say that we're finding a lot of deals right now that make sense for a product like ours in Miami. But the other parts of Florida, up outside of Tampa, Jacksonville, areas like that, there are a ton of opportunities, tons of opportunities like in a Memphis, Tennessee, or a Columbus, Ohio. So those are the types of markets that we're really looking close at.
Yeah. And when people are investing in a place that isn't near their home, do you feel, I mean, how do you help them with that? Because I would think for a lot of people, it's like, no, I can't, I'm not gonna be able to drive by every week and check on it. How can I feel good about this? Right.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think for a long time that's been a huge barrier for folks, is like this idea of getting comfortable investing in a market that they don't know.
Yeah.
And definitely we have customers that come in the door and they're like, I only want, my criteria is I have to be driving distance. Like that is just for them, that's a hard criteria, and that's what we're going to help them find. But I would say for the folks that are more open to it, there's tons of opportunities out there. And like even partnering with a company like ours, or just, if you're doing it on your own, a really good property manager on the ground, like makes the world of difference. And so really make sure that you're interviewing the team on the ground and that you have like the utmost confidence in them, because they are your eyes and ears. Like they do everything for you. And so it's really worth it to not, a lot of people will always look for the cheapest. It's not always the best. And like
Hardly ever the
with
best.
more heartache down the line.
Yeah.
So oftentimes it's better to like really just find the best operator, pay, a fair market price for their services, because really at the end of the day, that's what makes or breaks your investment.
Yeah. So how do you do that? I know that's a challenge a lot of people have when they're looking for a property manager. It's like, especially if you don't know you can't get a referral necessarily because it's not your neighborhood at all. It's like, how do you know that you're getting a good one? Because a bad one is a big flipping mess, right?
Yeah, totally. So it's a little bit different for short-term and long-term. But I would say the biggest thing is interview multiple folks. The other thing I would do is try and back channel them as much as possible. So then one of the things that I like to do is like look at some of their listings that are posted and then try and contact the owners of those properties and just like ask about their experience to date. Because, they're going to always give you referrals of their best clients that like them the most. So trying to find, anyone that just works in their portfolio and getting an unbiased third-party opinion is huge. And then specifically on the short-term rental side, and this applies to long-term a little bit, but the biggest deal in the short-term rental space in terms of revenue really comes down to revenue management and being able to like dynamically price properties and make sure that you're on top of that. Short-term rentals operate very similar to hotels. It's like every week we need to assess what our occupancy looks like, and we need to make decisions and pull the levers in terms of how to boost those things. And so on that space, like really looking for a team that can actively talk you through the revenue management process and how they're approaching that and how they do that for all their clients is really key.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great. So I'd actually know a really good short-term rental person in the Massachusetts area. If you ever find
Oh,
yourself,
amazing.
yeah,
I'm
I'll
gonna
send you,
get that rec.
I will send you her info because I think they have, I don't know, 200 short-term rentals or something. They really have it
Oh,
down to a
wow.
science. They're excellent.
That's
So
awesome.
send
Yes,
her
please.
info, but I have to look it up because I remember her name, but I can't remember the name of her company. So anyway,
I love that. No, we're always, and that's the other thing, we're always looking for property management partners in different markets. So that when we have clients that are looking to buy there, we instantly are like, hey, these are our people, here's our preferred partners, and we can help set that up.
excellent. So somebody who's thinking about doing this, who's like, get ready, they're itching, they're going to ready to pick up the phone and call you right now. What advice would you give to them?
Oh, such a good question. I think the biggest advice is really think about, what are your main goals? What are you really trying to achieve in this investment? And getting comfortable with like, how much are you really looking to, how much capital are you really looking to put into the deal? That is like the biggest thing I think that holds people back is like, they're like, I want to do this, but then there's just a huge sticker shock. And even, even when you look at a property, you're like, okay, 20% down. But what people forget about is there's closing costs. There's like all of these other things
Right.
that creep in, and all of a sudden it's more expensive than you thought. So really like having a strong opinion or thought on like, okay, I want to go out and I want to invest $50,000. That really helps us, help you find the right investment. And like, I want to invest $50,000 and I want it to cash flow and put dollars in my pocket, or I want a really high cash on cash return, or I'm playing this for the appreciation and this is a long-term play for me and I really want to be invested in this market. Those are the types of things that having that figured out coming into the conversation will just make things so much easier and faster, to work with us or really any other person in the space, whether that's your realtor, or somebody else.
Absolutely. Goals. Know your goals
Goals.
ahead of time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, why are we here?
Yeah. Why are we here? What is it that you want this to do for you?
Yeah.
That's what I always ask a person when because I'm a real estate agent as well. That's the first
Oh, yeah.
question. Like, what's our goal here? What are we? And it's wonderful. I was telling somebody this the other day when it's two different people and then they start asking them these questions and you realize that they're like, whoa, completely have totally different ideas. Like, okay, everybody, I'm glad we're having this little talk because we need
Yeah.
to know
Because
where
we all got to
everybody.
get on the same page.
Yeah. So do you have like limits, like high and low limits for the actual property values and things like that?
Yeah. So we will look at deals anywhere between 200,000 and 3 million. I would say our real sweet spot is really 300,000 to 1.5. And that just comes back to, the property has to produce enough cash flow. So finding kind of properties in that target range tend to have that opportunity more so.
Yeah, definitely. So Allie, I'm seeing our time is going by so fast here. Like, is there anything that I'm going to also ask you like for contact info and stuff, but is there any real question that you wish I would have asked you or something that you think we should have hit on that we just didn't happen to go into?
No, I mean, I feel like we've had, such a robust conversation around our product and how we can help our customers. Um, I would say, the biggest thing is like, if you're an investor looking to, or starting your real estate entrepreneurship journey, like, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And if you're a property manager or an agent or a lender that thinks that this could be a great partnership opportunity, like we're always open to building our network, all the way around and making sure that, we can help the industry as much as possible as well.
Yeah, well, along those lines, if you need, if you've got clients in Mass and New Hampshire, I'm licensed in both states for real estate, and
Amazing.
I love working with new investors. That's one of my favorite things to do. And
Love
also,
that.
of course, I have a great team as well that I can introduce
Yeah.
you to. So yeah, let's do that. Let's partner
I
up.
love it.
All
Synergy.
right.
There we go.
Excellent. So Allie, how can people get in touch with you? I know that like quick, like Oh my God, hurry up, Chris. Why didn't you ask this in the beginning? Because I want to talk to Allie right away. Tell us.
So feel free to always reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's my LinkedIn's under Allie Nichols and Getaway. You'll find me. And then if you want to reach out to me directly, it's super easy. ali@getaway.co. That's my personal email. So feel free. My inbox is always open.
My inbox is always full. I'm sure yours is the same, but excellent. Thank you so much. I'm excited about this. I just feel like this is such an amazing opportunity for people who have just been struggling and, just don't know, right? I want to do this thing. How am I ever going to save up enough money? And the real estate near me is too expensive and I don't know how to do the analytics. I mean, I just feel like you've just covered everything. It's a fantastic, fantastic product that you've created here. I'm really excited about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
We're really excited.
Yeah, it's great. It just feels like, philanthropy in a way. You're just like,
well, it's not all philanthropy, but
right? Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. But it's a game changer for people.
We do want to help as many people as we can.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you so much for listening and joining us for Women Creating Wealth. I think Allie has a great way for you to create some wealth and learn along the process. So if you've been kind of on the sidelines and not knowing what, to do next or first, I think reach out to Allie and be here next week because who knows what exciting things we'll share with you. Have a good one. Have a great one. Have an amazing one.